spiritual awakening to inspire your personal enlightened journey. I'm your host, Megan Mary, international best-selling metaphysical author and founder of Inner Realms Publishing. Let's bring in the light. Welcome. Today we have Amy Marohn with over 25 years of experience in chronic pain management, workplace injury rehabilitation, mental health, and addiction services. Amy brings deep expertise to corporate wellness and personal transformation. Holding a master's in Rehabilitation Counseling, she is a certified Master Hypnotist and member of the National Guild of Hypnotists and the American Hypnosis Association, as well as in an International Metaphysical Ministry. Author of Whispers Beyond the Veil, Channeled Teachings Inspired by the Spirit World, Amy blends evidence-based methods with hypnotic and energy healing techniques to help people and organizations achieve balance and success. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much, Megan. It's nice to connect, and I'm looking forward to an engaging conversation.
Me too. Yes, absolutely. Another one of those serendipitous connections.
Completely.
So I start out all of my podcast episodes with the key question, which is, what does enlightenment mean to you?
Enlightenment. To me, enlightenment is being able to see ourselves through a spiritual lens, to understand how the lessons and teachings in our life can enlighten us, inspire us, and allow us to call out the wisdom that is specifically meant for us here on the earth plane. And so to me, it is having a broader spiritual perspective of our journey here.
Yes, I like that. And everyone's answer is different.
Sure.
Yeah. And understanding why we're here, a big part of this podcast, deep discussions, spiritual awakenings. And I know you have a story of your own to tell of how you came to discover Beyond the Veil and the work that you do. So tell the listeners a little bit about your spiritual journey and experience.
Absolutely. So over a decade ago, I had a near-death experience. And Megan, the near-death experience followed a very long journey of, at the time, mystery illness. For 5 years, I had been suffering with chronic fatigue, chronic pain, low-grade fevers, an immune system that just wasn't functioning very well at all. And I didn't know it at the time, but even going back to my childhood, I struggled with something called dysautonomia, where my entire autonomic nervous system would just go haywire. So I had many years of struggling with what's called tachycardia and bradycardia, my heart speeding up or slowing down, near syncope episodes where you get the sensation that you're going to pass out, along with the tunnel vision. And it was 5 years, really at the almost pretty much the apex of my career, following major surgery, that I had experienced a steady decline in my physical health that was making it very difficult for me to focus at work. The commute was a bear because most of us working in corporate roles are working more than 8 hours a day, for certain more 10, and then you tack on a couple hours. I'm in the Seattle area of back and forth, and it really was challenging. And so many people With chronic conditions, I started just chasing doctors, trying to figure out the root cause of this, and even more so to put a name on this. Fast forward at about the 5-year mark, I found a doctor in Michigan who was actually able to put a name to this condition, and it's a mouthful, ME for short, myalgic encephalomyelitis. And essentially, in layperson's terms, chronic inflammation of the brain and spinal cord with some muscle involvement. My cells don't produce enough energy, and I could feel it. And this very inspired, Harvard educated man not only put a name on it, but tried his Western medicine protocol of high levels of antiviral medication. And for 10 months, I traveled back and forth. My body wasn't responding. At about the 10th month, I decided this wasn't working. I needed to leave my corporate position. And I essentially threw my arms in the air and I said, God, either take me or heal me, but don't leave me this way. And careful what you wish for, because I experienced a near-death experience shortly thereafter. Unlike so many people's experience, I wasn't in a hospital. I wasn't having a heart attack. So many people experience these near-death experiences during surgery, right? They have an unexpected reaction to anesthesia, or something unexpected is encountered during the surgical procedure. I was quietly at home. I was alone. My elderly mom lives above me. And somehow, between the time I went to bed and eventually woke up, my soul left my body. And my experience was clairaudient and clairsentient. And Megan, I'll explain that to those who aren't familiar with that terminology. I heard a voice or thoughts downloaded in my mind, and a question was posed. And that question was, Amy, are you ready to leave the earth plane? And before I could even respond to that question, I was downloaded into my being the cumulative feeling that my son, who was young at that point, would feel if I were to leave the earth unexpectedly. And so I could feel his grief, his sadness, his feeling of being abandoned and overwhelmed. And in that moment, I remember thinking, as much as I have suffered, as much as I was experiencing losing pretty much everything, my job, I had gone through a recent separation and was on the cusp of divorce. My elderly mom had moved out here to live with me following the death of her husband. And now I've got this house that I haven't lived in very long and a mortgage to pay. And my body was falling apart, Megan. At this point, I couldn't even stay awake more than 2 hours at a time. I couldn't make it through a single day. And even crossing the street to get the mail was too exhausting. And so in this moment, though, I realized that Spirit was giving me a foreshadowing of things to come. And I was at a crossroad here of deciding, am I going to leave or am I going to stay? I knew, and I know there's mothers out here listening to this, I could not leave my son. And so I remember thinking or saying, no, I'm not ready to go. Spirit then said, Amy, if we send you back, you will live more intentionally. And so my soul As quickly as it left, returned to my physical body. And I remember sitting up in that moment. It was very surreal, but I had no doubt in my mind the veil had been lowered. I had crossed some sort of threshold, and I was being divinely directed and guided.
Wow, that is a powerful story. Thank you for sharing that. So many of us that have that spiritual awakening arrive at that point of a breakdown in the body. That's how I arrived there, and a lot of other people do too. Some people have car accidents and other things, but some people just, their spirit and their body comes to this impasse, it
Mhm.
seems. And then it really does force a choice.
Mhm.
And if you're still here after that, you've probably become quite the spiritual person because it really changes everything, right? It
It
changes
does.
everything you thought you knew and lays this pathway for you that you feel compelled to walk down.
Mhm. Completely. And you're right. Everything moving forward, Megan, was so different. The way that I made decisions, they were less intellectually or logically based and more spiritually based. And the days and weeks to follow were surreal in the sense that within several days of that experience, remembering I had no idea how I was going to support my family or what I was going to do. I just refer to this as they, or the voice told me, Amy, you're going back to school. I want to make it clear, I didn't have a spontaneous healing. I still came back in the same form, but this voice, this spiritual essence was very clear and very directive in my path, which is exactly what I needed. And I knew that voice didn't come from me, it was coming through me. And then I waited a few more days, and the voice said, you're going back to school to be a hypnotist. Now, what's funny about that, Megan, is I had never known a hypnotist. I had never been to a hypnotist. And I never even randomly educated myself on the educational requirements or what exactly a hypnotist does. And so I didn't even question the voice because it was the same voice that I heard in my near death experience. And so within a couple months, I was in the training. Again, it was a very strange conversation I had with the instructor about, hey, I'm not really well. I don't know if I can do this. And she said, let's give it a try. And so I'm not going to lie, it was difficult. It's a short program, right? It's a certification program, pales in comparison to 7 years in college, very short. But when you're not feeling well, it was a bit of an undertaking and again, a bit of a drive. And so I muscled through that. And it was February of 2016. As soon as I got my certificate, I I probably threw up a chintzy looking website at that point, threw out a few ads. I didn't even have a payment system. There was no infrastructure. But again, I followed the voice and people found me. And at that point, my attitude was if I make enough money to put food on the table, then fabulous. And here I am 10 years later, and I've woven in so many other modalities. Now I realize spirit meant that to be an entry point or a platform or a springboard for all the other things that I have woven into my practice: mediumship healing, trance healing. I teach meditation, I teach mystical meditation and self hypnosis. There's just so many things. And I must say, this is the first business I've worked in where probably 90% of what I've created comes through spirit. I've definitely sprinkled in a lot of formal education, went back and took classes. I got another degree in metaphysics and studied energy healing and studied mediumship and everything in between. So here we are, 10 years later.
Wow, yes. I know about that voice that pretty much says you're going to do this and this. And you're like, but I don't know the first thing about that was what happened with me with podcasts. I was like, no, I don't even listen to podcasts.
Interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, I understand. And I also understand how urgent it feels to follow that. Like, for me, it felt like I couldn't catch up fast enough. And I also pursued the metaphysical degree as well. And it brings so many things in when you do that. It brings, you said, so many different layers. If you are enjoying my podcast and are intrigued by dreams and stories of spiritual awakening, I would like to personally invite you to explore my international best-selling metaphysical trilogy, Witches of Maple Hollow. Like a mystical fairy tale, these fall-themed mysteries weave cozy supernatural fantasy into enchanting tales of magic and self-discovery. Start with Book 1, The Dream Haunters. The Book Life Prize calls it packed to the brim with surprise portals, ancient traditions, and dream worlds. Then dive into the elusive nature of reality in the Dream Mirrors. And finally, unravel ancestral riddles beyond time and space in the Dream Dimensions. Get your exclusive signed copies today at meganmary.com. Stop by the store while you're there and grab your dream journals, cozy blankets, pillows, candles, and more. And don't forget, they also are available in audiobook. Come visit me in Maple Hollow. For people that hear you speak of hypnosis and are kind of like, huh, I don't know much about that either. They're wondering, all I've seen is stuff on TV or,
Yeah.
performances like magic shows. And how
Yeah.
is this part of healing? So let's talk about that a little bit, how you use it in your practice and what types of situations it can help people with.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because how I practiced hypnosis in the beginning and how I practice hypnosis now is totally different. In the beginning, I always say it's like we keep our training wheels on, right? We learn all the common things people seek a hypnotist for, like smoking or weight loss or anxiety, those kinds of things. And that's great, but it's very script based. It's very much one size fits all, right? The hypnotist, after a while, gets a little more creative and embellishes on the scripts. But basically, we get all this training as if here's a problem, then here's a solution. And about, I would say 6 months to a year in, I'm like, yeah, this is boring. And this also doesn't speak to the depth of challenges that some of my clients have. And so when people would sit in my chair and then a spirit comes through and says, do this or ask that, or all of a sudden we're working in the realm of energy healing, I was a little bit on overload. It's which is it? Am I a hypnotist? Am I a medium? Am I a trance healer? What's going on? And over time, I realized spirit was indeed moving through me and would help me masterfully blend all of these tools together. There is a conventional type of hypnosis, and I'm not saying that isn't helpful, but it's really focused on eliminating a behavior like smoking and overeating or whatever the case may be. What I was much more interested in doing is helping my clients to be able to see themselves through a more spiritual lens. We opened up, you had asked me in enlightenment, what do I think is enlightenment? And I really do think it's less about perfection or reaching this optimal state. It's more about understanding who we are first as a soul, right, in human form. And I also realized that I needed to develop a more spiritually based hypnosis because I truly believe that the answers lie within, right? So it's less about a prescriptive formula or me giving somebody my best advice on what I think they should do. My job is to help them, I always say, dust off their soul and their wings, because most of the people who reach out to me, I consider to be helper healers in their own right. And whether or not they're working in traditional helper healer roles or not, they tend to be very high frequency beings who are, it's more about moving through a major life transition and they're needing some grounding tools and some spiritual coaching. But so the answers lie within. I also believe that the most powerful healer of all is you, is the client, right? We can look at all these theories and all this training and all these textbook ways of doing things, but each one of us is divinely wired to heal ourselves, right? There's the primitive mind, the part of our mind that the trauma self or the shadow that keeps us in fight or flight and shoulda, woulda, coulda, and lacks compassion. And then there's the higher self or the higher mind. And that's the infinitely wise part that exists in each one of us. And my job through the tools of mystical meditation, and I think all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, is helping my clients deactivate the primitive mind and activate, right, that deeply intuitive part of themselves so that they can begin to identify root causes, but even more so, begin to piece together their truth, their formula for life that resonates best with their soul. So it's a total paradigm shift from traditional hypnosis in that I'm really trying to help my clients ignite the healer within themselves.
And I totally understand that. So many people that I've had on the podcast are maybe they're psychologists or they're sociologists or they're nurses or they're working in these traditional fields, learned a specific regimen and way that they're supposed to do their practice,
Mhm.
but they found themselves disillusioned in the process
Mhm.
of that and
Mhm.
realized that they were being challenged, that everyone that was coming to them had something to teach them about
Mhm.
themselves,
Oh,
and that
yes.
they didn't want to just do it the rote way, that they
Yeah,
felt called to start to bring in all these other things that resonated with them and put it into the practice to make it uniquely their own. And that's really what we're
absolutely.
called to do, right? It's like we get a
Absolutely.
push, but yeah, I got the push to make a podcast, but it didn't become a true crime podcast or a comedy podcast.
Yeah.
I knew that it was going to be a platform for other women, help them share their stories and to help others that are struggling through this transition. And similarly, I felt called to do dream work, but I didn't want to sit there and say, read out of my, pull up my big dream dictionary and read out of
Yeah,
it and
completely.
say, you dreamt of an owl, owl means this, and
Yeah.
just push them on their way because that's not helping them in any way. What I really wanted to do similarly was serve as a guide to say, well, let's help you decode your dream in a way that makes sense just for you, and like
Yes.
use that as a
Yes.
vehicle to tap into your intuition to discover more about your potential and yourself. And
Mm,
so I completely understand in that respect that you start somewhere and you have to start somewhere, but
completely.
that eventually you end up totally somewhere else. And that's what makes what everyone does so unique when
Mm,
they take it to that next level and they put themselves into it.
yeah, that's so true. For me, I have felt, divinely guided and directed by spirit. And then I've also come to realize, especially in these last handful of years, Megan, that divine timing has a lot to do with people finding me, and also that readiness piece to do the deeper work, because I absolutely, through my executive performance hypnosis, see a lot of corporate people for more like concrete things like, Amy, I've got to pass this certification exam that I failed twice in order to keep my job. And if I pass this, which everything is hinging on this, it's going to double my income, and there's going to be no end to what I can achieve in my respective field. To somebody coming to me because they have autoimmune issues and they're having a hard time being able to function in these high octane positions, or they're navigating a major life transition. Maybe their spouse died, or they relocated, or they have a teenage son with special needs that is requiring more hands-on care. And so they're really struggling with the work-life balance. And sometimes they come in for one reason and they realize that's not even the reason that I'm struggling. We dig down a little bit deeper and there's other issues at bay, and here's a safe space where we can shine a light on those things. But again, this is all about helping people find their way.
And when you combine the hypnosis and the energy healing, what
Mhm.
other modalities do you blend with those?
Typically, I do a consultation, 30-ish minute free consultation, where it's really spirit led. I'm asking the person all kinds of questions to get a good sense of whether spiritual hypnosis and energy were, how open are they? How ready are they? What have they tried before? I'd like people to paint me a picture. Where is it you want to be when you've moved through this process? What are your positive outcome measures? I share more about what I do. The best way I can describe what I do is intuitive healing work. But again,
Mhm.
it's less about me and it's more about what I'm empowering my clients to do for themselves.
Right.
And no two people with the same presenting issue are going to have the same kind of session. It's very spirit driven, it's very intuitive. Some of it, you work in the helping field long enough, it's a combination of wisdom, of things that you've seen, messages specifically brought through by spirit for this person sitting across from me. And some people will require a greater intensity of tools. So I have a form of interactive energy healing that I do with some of my clients. And if there is a deep history of childhood trauma, we do some deeper theta state work where I'm helping strengthen their mind body connection so that they understand where the trauma sits in the physical body, right? Because trauma does get trapped in the cells of our body. And I walk them through a beautiful, interactive, spirit led process of releasing those lower frequency energies and recalibrating to a higher frequency that's more grounded and more connected to the divine mind. or higher self. So
Wonderful.
there's lots and lots of things. If I'm doing grief and loss work with someone, that process can be absolutely tremendous, because depending on how open the client is and how willing they are to connect personally with their loved one, they may be able to experience that interaction as if it is happening now, being able to feel, touch, smell, hear, see their loved one on the other side. So it's so unique and so different, just depending on what brings somebody through the door and their own frequency and their openness to be able to experience some of these many tools.
Hmm. In your book, Whispers Beyond the Veil, channeled teachings,
Mhm.
what share with us in closing one of those channeled teachings?
Sure. This book really is a spiritual curriculum, and it can be used on a personal level for anyone who is wanting to live more authentically. And each chapter has journal prompts that takes you on this beautiful journey of self-exploration. In the beginning, it is about teaching clients or readers to be able to quiet their mind and connect either with the higher self or spirit. I use that term generically, understanding that we all have different beliefs and leanings, but also it's really created for spiritual workshop facilitators or spiritual book club facilitators, and women in particular, although I can see men also using this book. And so I would say it's hard to call down. I have an entire interlude or chapter on soulful leadership, and this is about teaching leaders to be able to hear the voice of the higher mind above all the distractions, above all the noise and competing interests, all the egos. And that was a profoundly moving chapter to channel, because I found it so poignant in my own career path, even in as a sole proprietor and a business leader who runs groups and programs in addition to seeing clients one-to-one. I would highly recommend, if you are a practitioner or person who wants to bring together a spiritual community, this can be very useful. If you are a seeker of your own higher truth, this is a wonderful, simple spiritual piece of literature to dive into. Each chapter is distinctive. You can read them and practice them out of order, which I love for people who are a bit ADHD. So anyway, lots and lots of good journal prompts and wisdom pieces in there for the average person or facilitator.
I love that you included journal prompts in there because everyone knows I'm a huge advocate of journal writing.
Yeah.
And whether it's a dream journal or just reflection journal, it's a very powerful practice. And I will include a link to that book in the Women's Dream Enlightenment podcast library that we have over at Amazon and at bookshop.org.
Mhm.
And so share with everyone where they can find you if they want to learn more about your hypnosis and the services that you offer.
Sure. Thank you, Megan. Probably best to find me on my website. It's sensoriumhypnosis.com. Sensorium means senses. The other good place to find me is on YouTube, and it's just Amy Marohn, Spiritual Hypnosis and Soul Healing.
Okay, I will put those links also in the show notes. Well, thank
Mhm.
you very much for being here today, Amy, and sharing your story and the wonderful work that you're doing out in the world.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Did you enjoy this episode? Be sure to subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Head over to my YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button as well to be part of my growing community. Are you ready to take the next step in your spiritual journey? Don't miss out on the new Dream Empowerment programs, unique opportunities for you to unlock your inner wisdom, discover your authenticity, align with your higher self, and bring abundance into your life. If you'd like your dream or awakening story featured on my show, submit it today. Your dreams have the power to inspire and enlighten other women on their journey. Visit meganmary.com to find out more.